Welcome back. This is going to be a fun one. Well, at least the in-class experience will be very fun and rewarding. So this video is for the hands-on activity part 6, which is really day 2 of the 2-part Tangram activity. In the second part, the lesson focuses on assessing whether the students can apply their newly learned geometric vocabulary. This takes us up to May 16th and May 19th. And before we go any further, as a reminder, please pause the video as often and as long as needed to generate your hands-on activities and to put all the proper links in place. Actually, let's link the behind-the-scenes teacher cheat sheet to hands-on 5 and 6 before we forget. This is the document I'm talking about right here, so we're going to copy this link and paste it onto our other sheet. And since it's all on this sheet, we're going to use it for back-to-back days here since we're now here. All right, let's dive into this one. So scrolling down on our document to day 2, which is right here, we'll find our next set of directions. You'll see that day 2 is even more student-centered with very little interruptions coming from you, the teacher. So let's read through the directions and set this up together. So you're going to split the class into pairs. One side of the room will be describers. The other side of the room will be makers. The describer is going to have to describe how to make the shape in the pre-made picture that they will be given. The describer is not allowed to look at what the maker is doing, and the describer is also not allowed to use their hands. All right, so something that needs to be added here is we're going to put they are sitting back to back. All right, so the maker will try to follow the describer's commands and build the identical pattern. The maker is not allowed to talk at all except for the word repeat. So the makers are going to have a desk or table space to work on, where the describers can be just sitting in chairs because all they're doing is holding a piece of paper with a pre-made tangram shape. So once finished, they just sit and wait for the other groups to finish. This lesson will show the importance and the power of explaining yourself in detail and how others can think completely different with what you meant. So let me backtrack a little bit here. So when I say that the makers can only say the word repeat, I'm going to be positioning myself so that I'm watching all the makers like a hawk. I don't care to look at the describers because they can say whatever they want. They just can't turn their heads. So I'm facing the makers. If they say anything but the word repeat, even if they say huh, they're out for that round. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. We're going to play multiple rounds. But I'm very strict with that rule because it actually makes the game more fun, holding them to that high standard. So moving on to number 6, it says, time permitting, switch roles of the describer and the maker. You're going to have plenty of times to play at least 3, but you could probably get up to 6 or 7 rounds where they're switching back and forth. The second time around, the students won't be perfect, but they will get better. And after they finish it for a second time, give them one hint like your left is their left, or there is no trapezoid, it's a parallelogram, or flipping the triangle upside down may mean something completely different to your partner. So things like you might want to say, have the 90-degree angle point towards the front board or point towards the door, or the back bulletin board wall, whatever. You're giving them specific things to say, but you're going to keep adding hints in between every round as they switch. And before I get to number 8, the other thing you're going to do is give them a little bit of time to talk in between rounds. So when you tell them, okay, I picked out a winner, this group is the closest, go ahead and look, they're going to turn around. You give your guesses, your estimation contest guesses, again, everything connects to that, to the group that you deem is the closest to recreating the shape. And then again, you give them about a minute or two to just talk to each other. Maybe they'll come up with strategy, maybe they'll just talk vocab, but it's just fun for them to say like, oh, when I said this, I meant this, or you didn't tell me to put this here. It's really good, productive conversation. So moving on to number 8. So now do another open example with the students, helping them along. Yeah, so this is if they're really struggling, you can do an open example. I've done this in some years, but most of the time I do not need to do this because the hints are good enough. Same thing with number 9. Number 10 would be a great way to close out the activity. To be honest, I often forget to go over this because I'm giving out so many hints in between each round. But this is a great way to have closure to the activity. So I have some keywords. Again, this is a cheat sheet for the math teachers, the math lab teachers. Just little things that we could tell them along the way as extra hints. Here's an example of what one of the patterns could look like. So again, the describers are sitting there holding this, and they're trying to describe this to the partner that's back to back with them, and the maker has these physical plastic shapes in front of them, and they're trying to recreate what the describer is saying onto the desk in front of them. And this last little paragraph is what you could write for your lesson plans. But again, you could pause the video to read. Here's just some added visuals. You see every step of the way of how the folds and tears are being made to create the tangrams. But again, this is something you could easily find on the internet. And then like this down here is an example when you're for the first one, for hands-on activity number 5, when you were telling them to mix up their shapes and then make a parallelogram. Again, there was 3 answers for that particular shape, but here's one of them, that what you're looking for them to do. All right, this is going to conclude hands-on activity number 6, and then stay tuned for our next hands-on activity, which will be number 7 in the next video. See you then.